On Tuesday, February 18th. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bouders?
Here.
Councilmember Donahue?
Here.
Councilmember Medina?
Here.
Vice Mayor Martinez?
Here.
And Mayor Pats.
Here. Can I have an approval of the final agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a move by the Vice Mayor and a second by Councilmember Medina.
Councilmember Bouders?
Aye.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Medina?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Martinez?
Aye.
And Mayor Pats.
Aye. Ex parte communications. Public comment for consent items or not items not on the agenda for the successor agency. All right, seeing none, do I have a motion for the consent
So
calendar?
moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bouders?
Aye.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Medina?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Martinez?
Aye.
And Mayor Pats.
Aye, and with that, we are adjourned. We have to catch our breath before we move on. Oh, it's 7:16, so I call to order the City Council meeting at 7:16. I think we can skip roll call.
Move the agenda.
I have a motion for the agenda.
Second.
I have a second from Member Donahue. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bouders?
Aye.
Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Medina?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Martinez?
Aye.
And Mayor Pats.
Aye. There are no special orders of the day to my knowledge, so we'll announcements, commission vacancies.
So at the March 3rd meeting, you will interview, we've had 3 candidates submit for Planning Commissioner and 1 for Commission on Aging. The remainder of the vacancies that we haven't been able to fill, we will add in. We're going to start our annual recruitment for all the big appointments we do in June, so we'll just fold those in on that. But March 3rd, you'll see 3 Planning Commissioner candidates and 1 Commission on Aging. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, and with that, special announcements, meetings attended. Member Martinez?
I just wanted to say happy birthday to Lillian Schroth, Emeryville resident, who decided to come to City Council for her birthday.
My brother wanted to check out.
This is going to be
Yeah.
any other meetings attended. Member Medina?
I went to A-Bag, which was a full day of delights, and it started off with a housing panel, which was state legislators being like, build more housing, and everyone else being like, no. And then we moved into HCD talking about what the new RENA numbers might be, and they said maybe 3 times as much as last time, and then everyone started getting really upset, so they said maybe less than that. So my bet would be it's going to be like 2.5 times. They're saying 3 just to like kind of soften the blow. But really interesting updates on RENA that I shared with Christine this morning, and the restrictions therein.
So for our guests in attendance today, will you please explain what RENA numbers are?
Regional Housing Needs Allocation.
Thank you.
And when do, Councilmember Medina, when do we get that updated number?
They said like a month or so.
I think, I'm not sure we get the final numbers that soon. I think it's a few months from now.
So at 2.9 times our current RENA numbers, will we be behind?
I don't know.
Okay.
But also they're restricting if you can reuse sites in really creative ways.
Member Bouders?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. You don't want to follow those great stories? Member Donahue?
No.
No. I just want to quickly mention we were at the mayor's conference in Alameda, held at City Manager. Can you remind me the name?
Penumbra.
Penumbra. Thank you.
Ooh.
And it takes a lot to impress me from corporate culture, but I do want to give a shout out to Penumbra. Aren't you glad I remember their name? They have the distinction of having the incredibly diverse workforce and having the most female engineers by an order of magnitude. And when he was talking to local Emeryville entity, the Center for Investigative Reporting, reveal on NPR for my audience, when asked how this happens, he talked about it simply being by default half of all engineers are women, right? Or half of the population is women. When you go out and recruit, it should not be a challenge to do this. You don't have to do any special holdbacks or anything. It is just that once you establish a culture that you hire people from diverse backgrounds, and he talked about the variety of not just genders but ethnicities and things, it really just imparted on me a way of framing it that I liked. And so this is not so much me celebrating that as just giving you guys a warning as we have things come to us, for committee vacancies and things. As I sat the next night at our art committee and thought about who we've given art grants to and what the art committee looks like, I'm going to be pushing for it because he said you establish a culture so people apply. Because the argument that people make to him is nobody's applying, they can't find candidates. And he said that's because people get the reputation that the culture doesn't accept people from diverse backgrounds, doesn't accept women as engineers, doesn't accept people of color. And so I just really liked that. Of course, being lectured on diversity from a wealthy white man was also amusing, and me doing the same is equally amusing. But I like the idea that you encourage applicants by saying that they actually have a shot at getting the job. And so we also talked about the RENA numbers. We talked about a lot of other important things. But that's really what stood out for me, that and the food.
Thank you for sharing that. That was very insightful.
I did. I enjoyed that, and I didn't plan to talk about it tonight. I plan to talk about it more as we look at who applies for things. But I want to really make sure we establish a culture to get in quality applicants, because I really liked how he framed it. And with that, we'll move to City Manager's Report.
None tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. You notice I have a little bit later time in the over-under, so that was a big stall there as people race through things. Ex parte communications. None. All right. Public comment for items on the consent agenda or not on the agenda.
Here's your chance.
Oh, I knew once you said RENA, we were going to get a public comment. You opened that bag.
I had to hear about Rena for 3 hours. What's 3 more minutes?
I like that he's ignoring us like we ignore him.
Okay, tonight you're going to be doing, I guess it's the second reading of parking meter ordinance. I don't know what it's called, but it's 10.6. So just so everybody knows here, a person came before the council during the first reading. It was a business owner, the owner of Ruby's Cafe on Hollis Street. And he said he didn't want to have parking meters in front of his establishment, his business, because his customers wouldn't like it and it would hurt his bottom line. And to that I say, well, naturally, who does want to have parking meters that their customers have to pay? What business owner in Emeryville wants to have parking meters in front of their places that will tend to drive away their customers? The answer is no business would want that. However, we have a parking policy that we have to follow, and so business owners have to suck it up, and the people have to pay for parking, unless you're the owner of Ruby's Cafe, who's a friend apparently of Mr. Bowders, Councilmember Bowders, because Councilmember Bowders elected to do a carve-out for the owner of Ruby's Cafe, who was crying that he doesn't want to have his customers have to pay extra for their cup of coffee. He says they have to pay for parking, and then the cup of coffee like doubles the price of the cup of coffee. And so he was crying about that. Councilmember Bowders felt that business owner's pain. So why not other business owners? What's the message that you've sent to every business owner in town? The message is, if you're not politically connected, tough luck. Basically, that's the message you sent. So it's not right. That's not the way we should be doing public policy. You know, those days that's almost like a pay to play. I'm not saying there's any hard corruption going on here. I don't think anybody's on the take, but it's just unseemly, and I don't think you should be giving away public largesse like that based on friendships or based on you because he came here. Even if you're not friends with him, he came here and he cried that he doesn't want his customers to have to pay extra. It's not good enough. I mean, it sends a really bad message to all business owners. So I think you should carve out that you voted for last time and have this thing be fair and equitable and have everybody have to pay for parking the way that it was originally intended before Mr. Bowders did the carve out at the last meeting. Thank you.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak this evening? Okay. With that, we'll move on to consent items.
Move the consent calendar.
Second.
I have a motion from Member Bowders, a second from Member Medina. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bowders.
Aye.
Councilmember Donahue.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Martinez.
Aye.
And Mayor Pats.
Aye. We have no public hearings, action items this evening, so we'll go right into department head reports. Any department head reports?
Mr. Mayor, we just want to thank the members of the council who were able to join us for the groundbreaking for the South Bayfront Bridge last week. We appreciate that. Sorry everybody couldn't be there, but it was an important moment in moving that forward, and we will look forward to the ribbon cutting.
I want to thank staff for that. It was a lovely event. Any other department head reports?
None that I...
Oh, okay. That brings us to future agenda item requests from council members.
I have two.
Go ahead.
The first one would be to update our ADU ordinance to keep up with some new state regulations, and also to try to make things easier for local homeowners, and also one to consider the fair chance housing ordinance, which is basically ban the box but for rental housing.
Say that a little slower.
Oh, sorry. To consider the fair chance housing ordinance, which is basically ban the box but for rental housing. So you cannot discriminate against applicants for potential housing if they have. Can I not explain this? You guys are okay. This
She's
is fine.
handling it.
Okay. And so that is an ordinance that's moving forward in Oakland and Berkeley, and I would like us to consider it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So, Mr. Mayor, with regard to the first item, Councilmember Medina mentioned the ADU, accessory dwelling unit ordinance. The Planning Commission is scheduled to consider at least an initial round of amendments at its meeting this month, the 27th, I think. If it's acceptable to the council, when that comes forward, which should be relatively shortly thereafter, any additional changes, you could direct us at that time to take those back, if that's acceptable.
That'd be great.
Great.
And fair chance, okay with everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, happy to have this conversation on that.
Thank you.
Great. Any other future agenda items? Okay, so a couple of quick things from me. Member Bowders and I met. We were the subcommittee on naming stuff after people in recognition of the amazing works they have done. We couldn't come up with a pithier title than that.
Is that a cool acronym?
It was not. That was the challenge. We wasted our first two meetings on acronyms, got nowhere, and moved right into the naming committee portion. Figured we'd lean into our strengths. With that, we have some things that we'd like to bring back, so we're not in a rush, but in the next couple of agendas where it fits in, we'd like to have a conversation on that. And then...
They're looking for everyone to...
Would you like to just have a general naming committee report item, or do you have specific things that you'd like us to agendize?
You could put it under item 12 as an action item for discussion and direction if you want.
Yeah, I think discussion and direction, because if we're ready to take action, I'd like to have that opportunity.
Discussion and direction on anything specific, or just a report out from the naming committee to bring something back? Because we could just have a report out from the naming committee, and then
Otherwise,
let us
they're going
know.
to draft a public staff report
Yeah.
with all of your recommendations.
Yeah,
in it.
let's have a conversation first, make sure everybody's on the same page.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you. And then I think we have settled, and I kind of want to have a conversation about it, but we've settled on a date for the block party, and so I want to make sure we get that out. I don't know that we need to bring it back out, but we're looking at August 29th.
Yep.
I think you're out of town.
I'm out of town. Yeah.
But I think finding any other times was a challenge with other events and things. So I just want to make sure that we start talking about that and announcing the block party is coming back, and that'll be August 29th. So with the council's indulgence, we had a member of the public who I have not seen here before asked to make a public comment, and I'd like to give him the opportunity, so I'm going to use mayor's prerogative and say, if you want to come up and speak now before we close, feel free, and this is good because you put me closer to 7:30.
Cool. Hi. Hello, everyone. This is my first time, so I didn't know what the process would be. I am co-chairing the Tenants Association at the Courtyards, 65th Street.
Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to speak. Alliance was the residential manager for several years, and that changed to Essex. And Essex owns several properties here in Emeryville, as well as around the country. But the big issue that we're having in that transition have been related to definitely a difference in how the quality of their management and several issues that have come up that have forced us to to create this tenants association. We had a meeting in September after the changeover in August of 2019, and thankfully John and Sergeant Lee were able to attend to address many of the residents' concerns. There are still some long-standing issues as it relates to security. Overall security has been compromised by a lack of fully functioning camera systems. My car was broken into. My bike was stolen, and so several residents have had their vehicles broken into. Actually, several days ago, I had to chase someone who was sleeping on the 4th floor. The smell you could smell from the 2nd floor, and apparently this is an ongoing issue. So a lack of 24-hour security, frequent break-ins, but this is on top of long-standing issues from last year, which are black sludge in water units. There's an issue with one tenant contracted fungi from the hot tub that had to be medically treated because of the lack of cleanliness. There's some differently abled issues in terms of access that still exist, and so there are several issues, several problems. I don't know how much time I have left, but I just wanted to stress that we are having another meeting. We're inviting John and Sergeant Lee, and we're also inviting all of you. We're inviting several members of the press, and it looks like this is escalating, and we've been tasked to escalate this issue because there has been almost a depopulation happening of our residents. People are leaving because of this issue, and Essex wants us to leave positive comments on Yelp. So.
All time. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, as a point of privilege, may I respond just briefly? Please. Thank you. So thanks for coming today, Kalima. And I just want to, since there was an open invitation and to avoid a Brown Act issue for any of us, I just want to reiterate that I have worked with the Tenant Association. I attended a meeting for about an hour and a half, 2 hours in September. About 75 residents attended that meeting. I came back with a comprehensive list of all the individual issues that residents were having. Some of them were systemic and some were more individual in nature as it relates to units or personal experiences. I had a series of meetings with Essex at the following week, and a meeting with the city manager and housing staff because there were some issues as they related to below market rate tenants that concerned me at the time. And the city staff had a series of meetings between September and the end of the year with the management company. There is a comprehensive list of action steps that the management company agreed to, and it is very important for us to check in on that. And so next Thursday, I will be going back to Essex to meet with the residents again to go over that list and to check what the city staff received as commitments, to see whether those things have been done, and also to gather any information about new items. So not that I assume it will come before the city council, but to avoid, because there are issues that residents have raised related to building and planning code issues and things like that, I just wanted to put out there that I will be in attendance already, so just so you know.
Thank you. Okay, and I think that brings us to the close of our meeting. So with that, we stand adjourned.
Great.